In some ways, this episode or snippet or whatever you want to call it is about my origin event. What's the thing that triggered my anxiety in the first place? When did it first show up? Where did it come from? Or more importantly, how did my family and I deal with it once it was on our doorstep? Who better to ask than my parents?
Um, let's start with when you were really young. Boy, at age 3, I think,
I'm thinking you were maybe 4.
I suppose you were just really uncomfortable and angry.
It got so bad that you were, going into the kitchen and throwing knives and forks and things all over the place, and you were just angry.
You had a trick. I don't think you used it often, but every once in a while you bang your head against the floor going backward. And you go, oh, this isn't good.
If we tried to hide the knives, you'd go up to the bathroom, and
I can't imagine us having locked you in a bathroom, but you were in a bathroom.
I don't know how you got into the medicine cabinet because you were short. I mean, you were a kid, but you did, and you'd be throwing, the medications around.
And you started destroying the mirror. I mean, you were really mad.
Like, couldn't calm you down. you would not be calmed down.
And we realized we had a firecracker on our hands. We talked to our pediatrician. You talked about suicide a couple of times, and this was at age 4. Mm-hmm. One of them was you came downstairs with a necktie around your neck, and you said, "This is how I'm going to die. I'm going to hang myself." This is a 4-year-old.
I mean, pretty creative.
We thought it was very sophisticated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another time it was, I'm going to step in front of a car when we were out for a walk. And the one other reference was, what is it like when you die? And we decided to tell you, it wasn't exactly, there's no ice cream there and you wouldn't like it. But we wanted to get that across, yeah.
We finally ended up taking you to a psychiatrist at the world-renowned Menninger Foundation.
Where all the wealthy and famous people went.
That's right, yeah. So it was appropriate that you went there, right?
Who talked to you and couldn't get the assurance that you weren't going to hurt yourself.
And we went to him like 3 or 4 times and had you draw pictures and talk and so forth.
Our pediatrician thought we should check you into Menninger.
As a 4-year-old.
As a 4-year-old.
Nice.
So the recommendation was that we put you in Menninger's inpatient program so they could work with you. He wanted us to institutionalize you, and
we considered it.
Your father being one who respects authority and being a white guy was like, okay.
And your mom said, I can't think of how I would explain this to my parents.
And I'm like, no, we're not putting her in an institution.
How old was I?
And you were like 4.
So we decided to do something outpatient.
So we didn't institutionalize you and brought you home, and we did have to hide the knives for a while.
And when we first met the psychologist, he said, so you think you can keep her safe? You think you have the weight advantage? You were about 35 pounds. Yeah, we can do that. Well, that made sense to him. Do you remember what the solution was as he found it?
What I remember is killing baby Erin.
Yeah.
And we were told that you were our family's lightning rod, that you were the one who soaked in all of the family feelings and goings on. And that's what you were doing, and it was trying to make its way out because it was so much or too much for you.
The idea was that Mara skipped first grade and went to second, and the first grade is when you say goodbye to the baby and start introducing yourselves to this now human child. And that her having missed that and you being the lightning rod for the family, we're worried about baby Erin. You were going to kill baby Erin and grow up also. And since we didn't have a better mechanism for it, having skipped first grade and that whole goodbye thing, and we were a family that never said goodbye. You were playing it out metaphorically with I'm going to kill myself.
Did that feel accurate to you?
Yeah, it did. It worked for me.
And once we explained that to you, we had to hold you down to do it. We never heard about suicide again.
You eventually got over it. I'm not sure how. It worked out. I mean, eventually the eruption calm down.
What I remember of my feelings, which is that they were just really intense,
Yeah.
and that I didn't have control over them, and I felt like no one else had control over them or could help me with them.
Yeah.
And that's a shitty way to live. Even as a 4-year-old, especially as a 4-year-old, if nobody can help you,
Yeah.
why would you want to live?
So you think it was actual feelings of suicide that you get kind
Well,
of miserable? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about suicide. I don't know if a 4-year-old can really like contemplate what that really means.
Well, you were doing a pretty good job.
Fair, yeah.
Yeah.
But I do think that there was a real sense of exhaustion and not wanting to keep doing it.
Oh, jeez. So I wonder why it stopped, or the expression stopped.
Well, I think you learn to pick up on the things around you, and if you're in trouble for something, maybe you do suppress it.
So is this favor to us? Or how does this go? Never mind whether or not you're going to kill yourself, if you can get out of having to hear these stupid stories about baby Erin.
Right, basically.
It's certainly worth stopping.
Yeah. Let's just not talk about it.
When you were very young, I mean, like a toddler, I remember you being a happy, outgoing kid.
Mm-hmm.
We were always afraid that somebody was going to run off with you because you were so trusting.
Mm.
And they were like, oh, she's so beautiful. And I was like, get away from her. She's 18 months. She's 2 years. You know, those sorts of things. And it's like, that was kind of scary. But I'm thinking, did that change when Barrett came along? Maybe? Probably? This is causing me to think here. And I don't know. It's like a switch flipped, and I don't know why.
20 years later, we got the additional feedback on you were being sexually abused.
Mm.
Interestingly, the psychologist didn't catch that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what? Here I am at 4 a.m. again, unable to sleep because anxiety has me worried about how to tell this part concisely and with enough lightness to assuage any feelings my potential audience may have before moving on. So, let me explain. When I was in college, I wrote a poem about my very hazy memories of being touched by and forced to touch my babysitter's son, who was some version of a child himself. When a professor submitted that poem for publication and it was accepted, it didn't feel fair to have something so raw exposed to the world without my parents knowing. So I told them, individually and awkwardly. My mom, having a dissociative disorder around the trauma from her own life, probably doesn't remember the conversation or its content, which may be why she doesn't mention it. My dad deals with deeply troubling information in the same way that my siblings and I do, or learned perhaps, with diffusing humor. Being abused is something that I had accepted and worked through with professional help, so why hadn't I told my parents about it until then? I was worried that they would blame themselves, and I felt protective of their ignorance. Another way I came early to the idea of anticipating others' needs and providing them to the best of my abilities. But all of this is an aside, put in because one must have a beat between a reveal and the next scene or it causes unease. Obligatory pause. Breathe in through your nose, count of 5. Hold it. Breathe out through your mouth for a count of 10. Okay. So it turns out my origin event is more like a story. I was sexually abused by my babysitter's teenage son, and I clearly didn't have the language or wherewithal to tell my parents about it. At the same time, my older sister, Mara, was making the difficult transition from kindergarten to 2nd grade, and as the family lightning rod, I was absorbing that stress. Third, I had a new baby brother, Barrett, who was by all accounts unexpected and not the easiest baby to take care of, which would have made it more difficult for my parents to give me the affection that I was famous for needing. There are lots of things that could have triggered my anger and suicidal thoughts, and I'll probably never fully know how they all combined to come to the surface. What I'm pretty convinced of at this point is that this probably has a lot to do with my current need for control and the anxiety I feel when I don't have that control. Next, I want to explore more about what it was like to have feelings in my family and why those feelings may have ended up feeding my anxiety.